Horizon Station floated in the darkness of space like a small city made of metal and light. It was home to 2,400 people. Families lived there. Scientists worked there. Children played in the corridors and dreamed of the stars outside their windows. Commander Sam Griffin stood on the observation deck and watched the distant sun paint the station in golden light. He had served in the military for 20 years, but he had requested this quiet posting. He was tired of war. He wanted peace. Horizon Station was supposed to be that peace. Dr. Laura Kent walked up beside him with a cup of coffee in her hand. She was the chief scientist on the station, a woman with kind eyes and a sharp mind. She studied the rare minerals found on the nearby asteroid belt. "Beautiful morning," she said. Sam smiled. "Every morning out here is beautiful." In the communications room, a young officer named Danny Vance sat at his station. He was only 23 years old, fresh from the academy. This was his first real assignment. He monitored the empty space around the station and listened to the silence between the stars. Then the silence broke. 12 ships appeared from hyperspace. They were massive, covered in dark armor and sharp edges. Danny had never seen anything like them. His blood turned cold as warning lights filled his screen. "Commander Griffin to the bridge," Danny said into his communicator. His voice was shaking. "We have unknown vessels, 12 of them. They are surrounding the station." Sam reached the bridge in less than 2 minutes. He looked at the screen and felt his heart sink. He recognized the ship design from intelligence reports. These were warships. The Empire was known across the galaxy for one thing: cruelty. "Open a channel," Sam ordered. Danny's fingers moved across his console. "Channel open, sir." Sam straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. "This is Commander Sam Griffin of Horizon Station. We are a civilian research and mining outpost. We mean you no harm. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in a harsh, growling voice. A face appeared on the screen. It was Overlord Supreme Commander of the fleet. His skin was gray and covered in scales. His eyes were yellow and filled with contempt. "Human," said, "your kind has spread too far into space. You are weak. You are beneath us. This station now belongs to the Empire. Surrender everything, your resources, your technology, your people. Refuse and you will all die." Sam kept his voice steady. "There are families here. Children, we have no weapons. We are not a military target." Laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "That is exactly why we chose you. Your weakness will teach your species to fear us. Surrender now." Sam looked around the bridge. He saw the fear in his crew's eyes. He thought of the children on the station. He thought of what surrender would mean: slavery, torture, death. "We will not surrender," Sam said. His eyes narrowed. "Then you will burn." The channel closed. Seconds later, the ships opened fire. The first blast hit the station's shield generator. The second destroyed the power grid. Explosions rocked the corridors as people screamed and ran for shelter. Sam grabbed the intercom and shouted orders. "All civilians to the emergency shelters. Security teams to defensive positions. Danny, send a distress signal to Earth. Send everything, every camera feed, every piece of data. The galaxy needs to know what happened here." Danny worked faster than he ever had in his life. His hands were shaking, but he did not stop. He sent the signal. He uploaded the footage. He prayed that someone would receive it. The soldiers boarded the station through breached airlocks. They were tall and brutal, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They did not ask questions. They did not take mercy. They killed anyone who stood in their way. Dr. Laura Kent heard the screams from her laboratory. She looked at the group of children huddled in the corner, 12 of them, ages 5 to 12. They had come to her lab for a school tour that morning. Now they were trapped. "Stay quiet," Laura whispered. "Stay behind me." She sealed the laboratory door and activated the emergency lockdown. Then she pulled out her personal recording device and turned it on. If she was going to die, she wanted the universe to see what they had done. Commander Griffin fought his way through the burning corridors. He had no real weapons, only a security pistol. But he kept moving, guiding civilians toward the escape pods. He saved 17 people before a soldier found him. Sam fired his pistol and hit the soldier in the chest. It barely slowed him down. The soldier raised his weapon and fired. Sam fell to the ground, a hole burned through his chest. But he had bought enough time. The 17 civilians made it to the pods. They launched into space and fled toward the nearest human colony. The massacre lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Horizon Station was a tomb. 2,053 people were dead. Only 347 survived, taken as prisoners for slave labor in mines. Danny Vance was among the prisoners. He was beaten and dragged onto a transport ship. But as he looked back at the ruined station, he held onto one hope. The distress signal had been sent. Earth had received it. Someone would come. Overlord stood on his command bridge and smiled. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast a message to all human colonies. People of Earth said, "This is what happens when you forget your place. Stay in your territory, do not expand, do not grow, or we will return and we will destroy everything you love. You are weak. You are nothing, remember that." The message spread across human space like a dark wave. It reached Earth 12 hours later. In Geneva, the leaders of the United Earth government watched the footage in silence. They saw the explosions. They saw the executions. They saw the children crying as soldiers dragged them away. When the footage ended, no one spoke. The room was filled with a terrible, heavy silence. Then slowly, the Supreme Commander of the United Earth Fleet stood up. Her name was Admiral. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and cold blue eyes. She had fought in 3 wars and won them all. "They want us to be afraid," she said quietly. "They made a mistake." She looked at the faces around her. Every single one of them was filled with the same emotion, not fear, not despair. Rage. "Get me the president," Admiral said. "They just started a war they cannot win." Somewhere in the darkness of space, 347 prisoners waited in chains. They did not know it yet, but help was coming. And it would bring the fury of an entire species with it. 3 days had passed since the massacre at Horizon Station. 3 days of silence, 3 days of waiting. The Empire believed that humanity was paralyzed with fear. They were wrong. In Geneva, Switzerland, the United Earth Defense Council gathered in a massive underground chamber. Every leader of every human nation sat at the great circular table. Military commanders stood behind them. Scientists and advisors filled the rows of seats along the walls. President Cole sat at the head of the table. He was a tall man with tired eyes and strong shoulders. He had been president for 6 years. He had handled economic crises and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared him for this. Admiral stood at the center of the room. A massive screen behind her displayed the footage from Horizon Station. The room watched in complete silence as the soldiers executed civilians. They watched children being dragged away in chains. They watched Commander Sam Griffin die defending his people. When the footage ended, Admiral spoke. 2,053 dead, she said. 347 taken as prisoners. They have declared us weak. They have told us to stay in our corner of space and be quiet. They believe we will do nothing. She paused and looked around the room. Intelligence reports tell us the Empire controls 47 star systems. They have over 3,000 warships. Their military has crushed 12 other species in the last century. On paper, they are stronger than us. A minister from the European Union raised his hand. "Admiral, are you suggesting we cannot win this war? Perhaps diplomacy is the better path. We could negotiate for the return of the prisoners and avoid further bloodshed." Admiral smiled. It was not a warm smile. Diplomacy requires two sides who respect each other, she said. They do not respect us. They see us as insects. If we negotiate now, they will see it as proof of our weakness. They will attack again and again until we are all slaves or corpses. She pressed a button, and the screen changed. It now showed a massive shipyard hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Mars. 15 years ago, the United Earth government authorized a secret project. We called it Project Reckoning. We knew that someday, humanity would face a threat that required overwhelming force. So we built that force in secret. The screen showed rows of warships unlike anything the public had ever seen. They were sleek and deadly, covered in advanced armor and carrying weapons that glowed with power. 247 ships, Admiral said. Plasma lance cannons that can cut through any known shield technology. Quantum torpedoes that can destroy a cruiser in a single hit. Engines that are faster than anything they possess. We did not build these ships for conquest. We built them for moments exactly like this. The room erupted in murmurs. Even some of the military commanders looked shocked. This fleet had been hidden from everyone except the highest levels of government. President Cole raised his hand, and the room fell silent. I have spent 3 days thinking about this decision, he said. I have read every report. I have spoken with every advisor, and I have watched that footage 17 times. He stood up slowly. They killed our people. They took our citizens as slaves. They laughed while they did it, and they told us to be afraid. His voice grew harder. I will not be afraid. Humanity will not be afraid. We did not survive ice ages, plagues, and world wars to bow before alien tyrants. We will bring our people home, and we will make sure they never threaten anyone again. He turned to Admiral. Admiral, you have full authority. Operation Reckoning is approved. Bring them back. Admiral saluted. Yes, Mr. President. 6 hours later, President Cole appeared on every screen across human space. Billions of people watched as their leader spoke. My fellow humans, he began. 3 days ago, a peaceful outpost called Horizon Station was attacked by the Empire. Over 2,000 innocent people were murdered. More than 300 were taken as slaves. Commander Sam Griffin died protecting civilians. Children were ripped from their parents' arms. He paused to let the words settle. They believe we are weak. They believe we will accept this attack and do nothing. They believe wrong. His eyes burned with determination. To the Empire, I have one message. You have made the greatest mistake in your history. We are coming. Not to negotiate, not to threaten. We are coming to rescue our people, and we are coming to ensure you never harm another innocent being again. He leaned forward. To the prisoners of Horizon Station, if you can hear this, hold on. We have not forgotten you. We will never forget you. Help is coming. The broadcast ended. Across Earth and every human colony, people stood in silence. Then slowly the silence turned into something else. Determination, unity, anger. Factories that had been idle for years began running again. Engineers reported for duty. Soldiers volunteered by the thousands. Humanity was waking up, and it was furious. On the flagship USS Reckoning, Captain Jack Mercer stood on the bridge and watched the fleet assemble. He was 42 years old, a career naval officer who had trained his whole life for a war he hoped would never come. Now it was here. Lieutenant Cross, his intelligence officer, approached with a data pad. We found them, Captain, she said. The prisoners are being held on Prime, a border world. Heavy security, but not impossible. Jack nodded. Can we get a team in before the main assault? Admiral already thought of that. She is authorizing a rescue mission. Sergeant Ben Torres and his team are preparing now. Jack looked at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, 347 humans were waiting in chains. Somewhere out there, an empire was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Tell Sergeant Torres he has full support, Jack said. We are going to bring everyone home." Nodded and hurried away. In the throne room, Overlord sat on his massive chair and laughed as his advisors showed him human news broadcasts. "Look at them," he said. "They talk of war. They shake their fists at the sky, but they do nothing. By the time they find the courage to act, we will have fortified our borders. Their prisoners will be broken. Their hope will be gone." An advisor bowed. "Should we increase patrols on our border, Overlord?" Waved his hand dismissively. "Why? The humans are no threat. They are soft creatures who value life too much. They will send diplomats and beg for their people back. We will refuse and they will accept it. That is who they are." He leaned back on his throne and closed his eyes. "Wake me if something interesting happens." He could not have been more wrong. At that very moment, a stealth ship carrying 12 human soldiers was entering space. Behind it, an armada of 247 warships was powering up their engines. The silence before the storm was ending. And when the storm arrived, it would sweep an empire away. The stealth ship moved through space like a ghost. It made no sound. It left no trail. The scanners passed over it again and again without seeing anything. Inside the ship, 12 soldiers sat in silence. They wore black armor and carried weapons designed to kill quickly and quietly. Their leader was Sergeant Ben Torres, a man who had spent 20 years in special operations. He had rescued hostages on 3 different planets, but this mission was different. This time, the entire human species was watching. Private Kate sat across from him. She was the youngest member of the team, only 24 years old, but she was also the best hacker they had. Her job was to disable the prison security systems. Without her, the mission would fail. Ben looked at his team and spoke softly. "We have 312 survivors waiting for us down there. They have been prisoners for 9 days. They have been beaten, starved, and worked until they collapsed. Some of them are children." He paused. "They think these people are broken. They think no one is coming. We are going to prove them wrong. We get in, we find the prisoners, and we get out. No mistakes. No one left behind." The soldiers nodded. They had all seen the footage from Horizon Station. They knew what they had done. None of them needed extra motivation. The ship descended through the atmosphere of Prime. It was an ugly world, covered in factories and mines. They used it to process resources and store prisoners. The facility they were targeting was a massive compound in the center of a dead valley. The ship landed 2 kilometers from the compound. The soldiers moved on foot, using the darkness and the rocky terrain for cover. Kate carried a small device that jammed enemy sensors. As long as she was close, they would not detect them. They reached the outer wall in 30 minutes. Ben signaled for the team to stop. "Kate, you are up." Kate moved to a maintenance panel on the wall. Her fingers danced over the controls. Lines of code scrolled across her visor as she broke through layer after layer of security. "Their encryption is strong," she whispered, "but not strong enough." The security cameras went dark. The motion sensors deactivated. The door locks clicked open. "We have a window of 15 minutes before they notice," Kate said. "Then we have 15 minutes, Ben replied. "Move." The team slipped inside the compound. They moved through corridors filled with shadows, taking down guards silently whenever they appeared. Ben led the way, his weapon raised and ready. They found the prisoner cells on the lowest level. Rows of metal cages lined the walls. Inside each cage, human prisoners lay on cold floors. They were thin and covered in bruises. Their eyes were empty. Ben felt anger burn in his chest, but he pushed it down. There would be time for anger later. Now he had a job to do. "Open the cells," he ordered. Kate worked her magic again. The locks clicked open one by one. A woman stumbled out of the nearest cell. Her clothes were torn and her face was pale, but her eyes widened when she saw the human soldiers. "You came," she whispered. "You actually came." Ben put a hand on her shoulder. We never leave our people behind. Can you walk? She nodded. Good, gather everyone who can move. We are getting out of here. The prisoners began to wake up. Hope spread through the cells like light breaking through clouds. People who had given up started to move again. Parents found their children. Friends found each other. Dr. Laura Kent emerged from one of the cells. She was bruised and exhausted, but she was alive. She was still holding her recording device. I documented everything, she said. Every crime they committed, every person they killed. It is all here. Ben nodded. Good, the universe will see it. Now stay close to me. They had freed 280 prisoners when the alarm started. Time is up, Kate said. They know we are here. Ben did not hesitate. Everyone move now. The prisoners ran toward the exit as soldiers poured into the corridor behind them. Ben and his team formed a rear guard, firing at the enemy to slow them down. Kate stayed at the front, guiding the prisoners toward the extraction point. A soldier appeared from a side passage and aimed at the group of children running beside her. Kate reacted without thinking. She threw herself into the line of fire, shot the soldier twice in the chest, and kept moving. Keep going, she shouted. Do not stop. They burst out of the compound and ran toward the waiting transport ship. It was larger than the stealth ship, designed to carry hundreds of passengers. Its engines were already warming up. The prisoners climbed aboard as Ben and his team held the perimeter. Soldiers were everywhere now, firing from every direction. But the human soldiers did not retreat. They stood their ground and kept shooting. The last prisoner boarded the ship. Ben counted his team. Everyone was still alive. Fall back, he ordered. Mission complete. The soldiers backed onto the ship, still firing. The doors closed just as a missile streaked toward them. The ship launched into the sky. The missile missed by less than 10 meters. The prisoners screamed as the ship shook, but the pilot held steady. They climbed higher and higher until the atmosphere fell away and they were surrounded by stars. And then they saw it. The USS reckoning directly above Prime. It was massive, more than 2 kilometers long, covered in weapon systems that glowed with deadly light. Captain Jack Mercer stood on the bridge and watched the rescue ship approach. All prisoners aboard, he asked. Confirmed, his officer replied. 312 survivors rescued, 0 casualties on our team. Jack smiled grimly. Good, now let us send the message. The reckoning turned toward Prime, its weapons powered up. Target all military installations, Jack ordered. Leave the civilian areas alone. We are not like them. The ship fired. Plasma lances cut through the atmosphere like swords of light. Quantum torpedoes struck military bases with devastating precision. Factories that built warships exploded. Barracks that housed soldiers were reduced to ash. Communication towers that coordinated the fleet were silenced forever. The bombardment lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, every military target on Prime was destroyed. The garrison of 50,000 soldiers was gone. In the throne room of Prime, Overlord received the report. His advisors trembled as they delivered the news. Prime has fallen, Overlord. The human prisoners are gone, our garrison is destroyed, and our sensors have detected a massive fleet entering our space. Stood up slowly. For the first time, there was no smile on his face. How many ships? Over 200, Overlord. They are moving toward the inner systems. Stared at the tactical display. Red dots representing human warships were spreading across his territory like a disease. Rally every ship we have, he ordered. We will crush them at Nebula. They may have surprised us, but they cannot defeat the full might of the Empire. He clenched his fist. These humans will learn that one battle does not win a war. But as he watched the human fleet advance, a cold feeling crept into his heart. For the first time in his life, Overlord felt something he had never felt before. Fear. The nebula was a cloud of purple and gold gas that stretched across 1 billion kilometers of space. It was beautiful. It was also about to become the graveyard of an empire. Admiral stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, the command ship of the human fleet. Around her, 247 warships moved in perfect formation. Their crews were ready. Their weapons were charged. Their mission was clear. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported. "Fleet detected ahead. Approximately 1,800 warships. They are forming a defensive line at the edge of the nebula." Studied the display. 1,800 ships. That was more than 7 times the size of her fleet. Any other commander might have felt doubt, felt nothing but cold determination. "They think numbers will save them," she said. "They have not seen what our weapons can do. All ships prepare for combat. We punch through the center and split their formation. No mercy, no retreat." The human fleet accelerated toward the line. On the other side of the nebula, Overlord commanded his forces from the deck of his personal battleship. He had gathered every available ship for this battle. Victory here would crush the human invasion. Defeat was not something he considered possible. "The humans are approaching, Overlord," his tactical commander reported. "They are not slowing down." Smiled, "They are brave. I will give them that, but bravery is not enough. Open fire when they are in range." The two fleets closed the distance. When they were within weapons range, they fired first. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human ships. And then something unexpected happened. The human shields held. The weapons that had destroyed a dozen species barely scratched the advanced armor of the human fleet. The commanders stared at their screens in disbelief. How was this possible? The humans fired back. Plasma lances cut through shields like they were made of paper. Quantum torpedoes struck battleships and detonated inside their hulls. Explosions bloomed across the formation as ship after ship was destroyed. In the first 5 minutes of battle, the humans destroyed 300 warships. They lost only 2 of their own. "This is impossible," a commander screamed into his communicator. "Their weapons are too powerful. Our shields cannot stop them." Watched in horror as his fleet began to fall apart. Ships that had conquered star systems were being torn to pieces. His numerical advantage was melting away like ice in a fire. "All ships focus fire on their lead vessel," he ordered. "Destroy their command ship and the fleet will scatter." The forces concentrated their attack on the USS Valiant. Hundreds of weapons fired at once. Admiral did not flinch. "Activate the defense grid," she ordered calmly. A network of interceptor drones launched from the Valiant. They formed a protective shell around the ship, shooting down missiles and absorbing energy beams. The concentrated attack did almost nothing. "Return fire," said, "all batteries." The Valiant unleashed its full arsenal. 3 battleships exploded in rapid succession. Their debris scattered across the nebula. Captain Jack Mercer led the vanguard assault aboard the USS Reckoning. His ship carved through the enemy formation, destroying everything in its path. "Commander, we have broken through their center line," his officer reported. "Their formation is collapsing." "Do not let them regroup," Jack ordered. "Press the attack." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the nebula was filled with the wreckage of 1,400 warships. The survivors fled in every direction, their formation completely shattered. Human losses totaled 19 ships and 2,000 personnel. It was a devastating victory. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Other alien civilizations watched in stunned silence. They had been one of the most feared military powers in known space. The humans had crushed them in a single engagement. But Admiral was not finished. "Set course for the next system," she ordered. "We do not stop until we reach Prime." The human fleet advanced deeper into territory. System after system fell before them. Military bases were destroyed. Warship factories were reduced to rubble. Communication networks were dismantled, but gave strict orders about how the campaign would be conducted. "We do not attack civilians," she said. "We do not bomb cities. We do not kill those who cannot fight back. We are not the, when refugee ships flee, let them go. We are here to end a military threat, not to commit genocide." The orders were followed without question. Human soldiers watched as civilians evacuated in transport ships. They did not fire. They let them go. This surprised the galaxy almost as much as the military victories. The humans were winning, but they were showing mercy. They were destroying an empire without becoming monsters. Overlord retreated to Prime with the remains of his fleet. He had less than 600 ships left. He sent desperate messages to other alien civilizations, begging for help. None came. No one wanted to stand against the humans now. In his throne room, received a communication request from Admiral. "Put it through," he said. His face appeared on the screen. Her expression was cold and hard. "Overlord," she said, "your fleet is destroyed. Your territory is falling. You have one chance to end this peacefully. Surrender unconditionally. Release all prisoners. Submit your military commanders to stand trial for war crimes. Do this, and your civilians will be spared." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You expect me to surrender, to give up everything? Never. I will fight to the last ship." Nodded slowly. "I expected you to say that." She held up a data pad and pressed a button. The footage from Horizon Station began playing on screen. The executions, the screaming children, the murder of Commander Sam Griffin. "You asked me once if we understood our place in the galaxy," said. "Now you will understand yours. We are coming for you, and there is nothing you can do to stop us." The transmission ended. 2 days later, the human fleet arrived at Prime. The orbital defenses were the strongest in the Empire, protected by 300 warships and dozens of weapon platforms. Captain Jack Mercer led the assault. The battle was brutal. Defenders fought with desperate fury, knowing they had nowhere left to run. But human technology and human determination proved unstoppable. One by one, the defense platforms fell. The warships were destroyed or disabled. After 12 hours of continuous fighting, the orbital space around Prime was secured. Overlord tried to flee on his personal cruiser. The USS Reckoning intercepted him. Jack opened a channel. "Overlord, your empire has fallen. Your fleet is gone. Surrender now and face justice, or die here in the void." His voice came back, filled with rage. "I will never surrender to insects. You may have won today, but the galaxy will remember that the never bowed to lesser species." His cruiser turned and fired everything it had at the Reckoning. Jack did not hesitate. "Return fire." A single quantum torpedo struck the cruiser. The explosion lit up the darkness of space. Overlord was dead. Hours later, the High Council transmitted their surrender. The war was over. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Valiant and looked at the planet below. Millions of civilians lived there. They would not be harmed. "Begin relief operations," she ordered. "Make sure the civilians have food and water. Set up tribunals for the military commanders, and send a message to Earth." Her officer nodded. "What should the message say, Admiral?" Looked at the stars for a long moment. "Tell them we won." 6 months had passed since the war ended. The galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. An empire that had dominated 47 star systems for centuries had been completely destroyed in less than 3 weeks, and the species that had done it was one that had called weak and inferior. On the ruins of Horizon Station, a memorial was being built. It floated in the same orbit where 2,053 people had died. Workers moved carefully through the wreckage, recovering bodies and personal belongings. A massive wall of black stone was being assembled at the center. It would hold the name of every person who had been killed. Dr. Laura Kent stood on a platform overlooking the construction. She had recovered from her injuries, but the memories would never fade. She still saw the faces of the children she had hidden in her laboratory. She still heard Commander Griffin's last transmission. She still remembered the cold eyes of the soldiers. But she was also filled with something else now. Pride. Pride in her species. Pride in the soldiers who had come to rescue her. Pride in a civilization that had turned grief into action. A crowd was gathering on the platform. Survivors of the massacre, families of the fallen, soldiers who had fought in the war, politicians and diplomats from across human space, and cameras that would broadcast this moment to billions of people. President Cole stepped forward and addressed the crowd. "We gather here today to remember those we lost," he said. "The scientists and miners, the families and children, the officers and crew. They came to this remote corner of space to build something, to explore, to dream, and they were murdered for it." He paused. "But we also gather to celebrate what came after. When they attacked Horizon Station, they expected us to cower. They expected us to accept their cruelty and do nothing. They were wrong." His voice grew stronger. "In 3 weeks, humanity dismantled an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for generations. We rescued our people, we brought justice to the killers, and we showed the universe who we really are, not conquerors, not tyrants, but a species that protects its own, a species that will not be pushed, a species that finishes what others start." The crowd was silent. Tears ran down many faces. Dr. Laura Kent was called to the podium next. She walked forward slowly, her recording device still hanging from her neck. She had worn it every day since the rescue. "I was there when it happened," she said. "I watched friends die. I hid children in my laboratory and prayed that the soldiers would not find us. I thought we were all going to die." She looked at the crowd. Commander Sam Griffin gave his life to save 17 people. He knew he could not survive. He knew they were too strong, but he fought anyway, because that is what humans do. We do not give up. We do not surrender. Even when the odds are impossible, we keep fighting. She held up her recording device. "I documented everything that happened on this station. The murders, the cruelty, the fear. I did it because I wanted the universe to see, and now they have seen, and now they know." She placed her hand on the memorial wall. "Rest now, my friends. You are not forgotten. You will never be forgotten." In the crowd, a young man stood with tears in his eyes. His name was Danny Vance. He had been a communications officer on Horizon Station. He had sent the distress signal that started everything. He had survived 9 days as a prisoner. He had watched friends die. But he was alive, and he was standing on the station where he had almost lost everything. His family was beside him. His mother, his father, his younger sister. They had thought he was dead. When the rescue ship brought him home, they had cried for hours. Danny walked to the memorial wall and placed a small flower at its base. It was a sunflower. His best friend had loved sunflowers. "I made it out," he whispered. "Because of you, I will never forget." The ceremony ended, but the day was not over. In the great hall of the Galactic Assembly, representatives from 100 different species had gathered. They had come to hear humanity's message. They had come to see what the destroyers of empires would say. President Cole stood at the podium. Admirals stood beside him. Behind them, a holographic display showed the flag of United Earth. "Representatives of the galaxy," President Cole began. "6 months ago, the Empire attacked a peaceful human outpost. They killed innocent people. They took prisoners as slaves. They told us to be afraid." He looked around the assembly. "We were not afraid. We responded with everything we had, and the Empire no longer exists." The chamber was completely silent. "Let me be clear about who we are," Cole continued. "Humanity does not seek conquest. We do not want your planets. We do not want your resources. We do not want to rule you. We want to live in peace. We want to explore the stars. We want to build and create and grow." His voice hardened. "But we will not tolerate attacks on our people. We will not accept slavery. We will not ignore cruelty. If any civilization harms innocent humans, they will face the same fate as the... Not because we enjoy war, but because we will always protect our own." He paused. "This is not a threat. It is a promise. We hope we never have to keep it again." He stepped back from the podium. Admiral saluted the assembly and followed him out. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. Several species that had been aggressive toward humans quietly moved away from human borders. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Humanity was no longer seen as a young and weak species. They were respected. Some feared them, but no one underestimated them. They became a protectorate. Their military was disbanded. Their former leaders faced trials for their crimes. The species they had enslaved were given their freedom. Admiral retired from active duty. At her final ceremony, she handed command of the fleet to Jack Mercer, who was now Admiral Mercer. He promised to carry on her legacy. "You taught me that strength is not about how many ships you have," Jack said. "It is about what you are willing to fight for. I will never forget that." "Smile, just keep our people safe. That is all that matters." A year after the war, a new outpost was built at the edge of explored space. It was named New Horizon. It was larger and stronger than the original station, protected by a permanent defense fleet. A young officer stood on the observation deck and looked at the stars. Her name was. She was 22 years old, fresh from the academy. This was her first posting. An older officer walked up beside her. "Beautiful view, is it not?" Nodded. "It is amazing. All those stars, all those possibilities." The older officer smiled. "That is why we are here, to explore, to discover, to build something new." Looked at him. "Do you think anyone will ever attack us again?" The officer considered the question for a moment. "Maybe. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There will always be those who see kindness as weakness, but they will learn the same lesson they learned." "What lesson is that?" The officer looked out at the endless stars. "Humanity does not start wars, but we always finish them." Smiled and turned back to the view. Somewhere out there, 1 billion adventures were waiting, and humanity was ready for all of them. The war was over, the fallen were remembered, and the future was bright. This was the legacy of Horizon Station. This was the price they paid for their arrogance. And this was who humanity had become. Not conquerors. Not victims. Survivors. Protectors. And forever free.